is Patrick Hurley. I'm your host for the second annual Winter NEK Tipsy Talk series. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. It seems that we only get snow when everybody schedules to drive around on a Tuesday night at 6 o'clock in the dark. So I really appreciate you braving the road conditions and coming out to join us tonight. This is our second effort at a local storytelling series. We'd like to take credit for inventing this idea, but we ripped it off from other people and took it 2,500 miles east and tried it over again. So Tipsy Talk is this kind of hybrid between like a moth story hour, a TED Talk, and drunk history. The idea is you come down a local watering hole, you kind of give your speakers some liquid courage, and then have them get up and tell a passionate tale or a heart-wrenching story or a fascinating tidbit about whatever it is that they happen to care about and want to subject you to listen to. So, with that said, there's no real guidelines other than, captivate people and show up and do it. So, tonight we have two famous locals. We've got Heather McKeown, who is a mediator, a muscular therapist, an author, a former flight attendant, and there was one more. An artist. I thought that was all, the above, like a big bracket around all that, but yes. So she's with us tonight. She's going to tell us about her riveting tales of being a flight attendant for JetBlue and I assume other airlines.
No.
Okay, just JetBlue. Mark my words. And so we're going to hear all about her. Heather's actually written a book on the stories that she's collected over the years from being a flight attendant. And the most fascinating part is that JetBlue bought a copy and issued one to each of their flight attendants for the entire company. So clearly there's something interesting in this book of hers. So welcome Heather up to the stage.
And thank you everybody for coming. I actually was so delighted to find out that I wasn't interrupting everybody's drinking. I thought I was going to interrupt everybody and you were here to be at the bar. And Gail told me that, no, it's Tipsy Talks. I went, oh, well that's good. Yes, I was a flight attendant for 16 years until COVID. And when I saw 8 of my friends die within the first 6 weeks before the vaccine, they offered us an out. So they said, you can leave for 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, or walk. And I'm in my 70s. I thought, walking's good, or it could be. And I thought I'd never retire because I loved every single minute of it, every single facet of it. I just loved it. Even the fatigue wasn't that bad because then there was an excuse for looking my age. I'm not tired. But I worked 2 weeks in New York and then out of JFK, and then I come home and work 2 weeks here. My business is here. It worked out very well. It's a very flexible lifestyle. If you have a little seniority, you can bid. I want to work this day, I want to work that day, I want to go here, I want to go there. And if you've got seniority, and it's such a young company, I had a lot of seniority. In fact, I was probably 10, 20, or 30 years older than everybody else there, but seniority counts on the day you're hired. So, a little bit about flying for me in my life. It's been part of my life since I was 3 years old. My dad took me to my first air show when I was 3 or 4. And the reason I know my age is because I kept that dress and put it on my dolly forever. My dolly, Joni, who was this big. And I still have her head. I don't know what happened to her body. Of course, I don't know what happened to my body. Anyway, so I was 3, and my dad took me to a huge air show. And he would look up and he'd say, look at that, that's a flying boxcar. And I went, okay. And he went, look at that, that's a this, that's a that, that's a this. And he knew them all. And he was a Navy man, so it surprised me, but it's because he had a love of aviation that he was sharing with me at that moment. And then, inevitably, he became a pilot, a private pilot, and we had a cottage on the lake. So he'd fly to the cottage, and he'd land in front of the cottage if the lake was calm, and he'd land in Newport if it was too rough to land on the lake, and we had an old beater car that he would drive in. You could see through the floor. The plane wasn't that much better, to tell you the truth, but my mother used to get in it and say, will this thing land? Will this thing take off? Can this thing fly? She flew with Dad maybe twice, but my brother used to get extremely sick, and I used to love it, so he'd make me co-pilot. So I was co-pilot from the age of 10 or 11. Went to ground school when I was 17 or 18. Loved it. Flew all the time. I never soloed. There are a lot of reasons for that. You should see me drive a car. But I didn't solo. I intended to, but I was not in any rush. And then I decided I'm going to become a bush pilot. And then my dad said, no more flying for you. And I was paying for it all myself and going to school and working. And he said, nope, no daughter of mine. So I went back to my original desire to fly as a flight attendant because when I was 17, my mom passed away. And I became, I guess you could call it, extremely depressed. I wanted to quit school. Dad said, no way. How about coming across Canada trip with me? And think about it on your next holiday from school. So I did. Out to Vancouver, but before we got to Vancouver, there was a 3-day delay. Stuck in the Montreal airport in March of '71. Trudeau got married in Vancouver. I just missed it. It could have been mine. We all had Trudeau mania back then. Anyway, so Trudeau got married to Margaret out in Vancouver during that blizzard, and I was stuck in Montreal. That was so depressing, but the rest of it was fantastic. Because over a 3-day period, I people watched. And a flight person came out of nowhere and gathered people together and said, who can sing? And people started singing. And there were individuals who sang, groups that sang, we all sang, and then a gentleman stepped up. He was wearing a camel-haired coat, elegant man, and he sang something wonderful that was operatic. And I've been in love with opera ever since. But then the Canadian ski team was there. And just to make things a little juxtaposition, they sang, put all your faith in the pill. And then they sang Cocaine on the Brain. And I told my dad, I'm still a terrible skier. I spent 25 years falling off the T-bar, but I sing those songs every chance I get. So maybe I'll make the team on that level. I don't know. Fun is, eh? Just fun. So I was wanting to be a flight attendant, and I had 53 rejections between the ages of 18 and 21 from every Canadian airline. I would make it as far as the interview because I lied on the application about my height. And for some reason, they took one look at me and they knew that I was not 5'8". And I said I was having a bad day, or I'll shoot up tomorrow, or my legs are like pistons, they're in today. But 53 rejections over 3.5 years, and I kept them. And that was that. So I grew up. I did not grow up. And I did all sorts of things, and I became a mom twice. Loved that. And then in my dotage, my daughter announced, we're selling our Vermont business, we're selling our home, we're moving to Florida to open a bagel business, and we're having your first grandchild. And I went, oh no, that won't work. Because I was living in East Berkshire. I was working in New York a couple of days every week at the Muscular Therapy Center. So I was flying JetBlue back and forth every week. And I said, well, maybe I'll just apply. And I asked one of the flight attendants, and her name was Lucinda Hopwood. And I said, I'm too short. She said, I'm too fat. They don't care anymore. They can't care. It's the Disabilities Act. She says, if you're large and you can still fasten a seatbelt around your waist on the jump seat, you get in. And if you can touch a dot on the wall, which is probably up to your eyes, you can get in, or you can sue them. I'm not at all litigious, I am a mediator, so I said, well, okay. And I applied, and first you fill out a 17-page paper online. Then they phone you for a phone interview. And then if you're lucky, they call you to New York for an 8-hour interview with 39 other people. And they put you through games to see if you cooperate. And then they take you into a room with 5 of them, and they ask you, why should we hire you? You know, what this, that, and the other, you know, values, this, that, and the other. And the last question they ask is actually, they put you in front of the entire congregation and put a tray in your hand for some reason. And they say, why should JetBlue hire you? And I burst into tears. And I said, it's my last chance. And it was. And so they hired me. And 6 months later, the fellow who hired me, one of them, said, Heather, you know, we were really worried about you when we hired you. I said, why? Why? I can do it. I can spill coffee at any altitude. And he said, we thought we wouldn't live up to your expectations, and I said, you surpassed every single one. And they did. I worked with the best people. Like I said, they're all really younger than me, but they're all smarter. And I love them, and I miss them. And a lot of us are still in touch, but it's not like I can see them every day. And that hurts. But I can see you, so thank you for coming. Mic a little higher? And I have notes because so much of this is important, and I knew I'd forget it. Really, you're my age. Okay, background check, past that. Okay, now I'll start talking to you a little bit about some of the customers that touched my soul, because they all did. Whenever I walk around this country or anywhere else and I hear people say, oh, America this, America that, Americans this, Americans that, I really get ticked off. Because I met them. I met them all. And I love them. Anyway, let's talk about little Jeremy. Come on the plane. He's this tall, he's 3 years old. And he was all over the place, and he was the sweetest little fellow. And his mother just walked down the aisle, and she didn't watch if he was following her or anything, so I trailed him down the aisle. And she got into the seat, and she was in the aisle, and he had to crawl over her, but she was just very stoic and wouldn't even talk to him. As he crawled over her to get to his seat, he's 3 years old. And she said, he's a horrible, horrible child. And I said, he's 3. You know, I was horrible at 3. I turned out basically okay. And she said, I adopted him when he was 3. He's the wrong one. So the flight attendants and I adopted that boy ourselves for that flight. We filled him with love, cookies, and we would have given him beer just to cheer him up after his mother's abuse. But we were nice people, we did that. But that's one of the bad stories. That's one of the mothers that we met on board. But most of the time, we met people who were the most amazing parents, nurturing, loving, compassionate, considerate of their children. And one family, which I didn't put on my notes, but I'll tell you about now, actually their last name was Jay. They were flying out of Kennedy to Pittsburgh, but they had come from Newport, Burlington, because they had been skiing at Jay. And they were all wearing matching shirts, matching ski jackets, things like that. And on the other side of them was another family. And this family ordered ginger ale. And they all ordered ginger ale. So I delivered the ginger ale to this family, but then when I went back to the galley, there was only one ginger ale left. So I came back and gave them the ginger ale. And at the same time, the child of this family asked for a ginger ale. I had given one to the father. And I said, I'm sorry, but that was the last one. I'm so sorry. And he said, well, that's too bad. You don't get any. The J family, 5 children, 2 parents, shared that ginger ale. And at the end, it wasn't empty. That's a miracle. That's good parenting. That's sharing. And that's what I consider America. The best part. I'm such a wimp. I cry all the time. And there's another one, 5-year-old. An entirely beautiful black family gets on. Little boy, little bigger boy. The littlest boy was 5 or under. He was with his grandma. And he sat on this side. Little boy by the window, his mother, and the other little boy sat here on this side. And the little boy stopped me. And his grandmother just sat there quietly. And he said, what did he say first? If anyone tells you you look old, you tell them, no, I'm young. I went, oh, okay, I'll remember that. And if anyone tells you you're stupid, say, no, I'm not, I'm smart. You defend yourself, you stand up for yourself. He's 5 years old. And his grandmother just sat there like this. And then he said, I take care of my family. My grandma, my mother, my brother, my aunties. I've got one auntie, she's only got 1 leg, 1 foot. I take care of her. I massage that leg. I massage that foot. I take care of my family. 5 years old. His grandmother, he says, have you known sadness? have you ever lost anyone to death? You don't get to be my age without having lost people. I said, yes, I have. He said, well, then don't be sad. Don't you be sad. If you be sad every day, you can't be happy. And I'm going, this guy's brilliant. I love him. I just loved him. The grandmother just sat there, and he said, my grandmother, she's known sadness. She's known sadness, but she's not sad every day. She's a good grandmother. And I will remember that. And then I said, what would you like to be when you finish school? And by this time, everybody in the plane is listening to this little boy. And he said, I'd like to be president of the United States. And I just looked at him and I said, you can do better. I love that little boy. I love this whole family. And that was before Barack Obama got elected. So he had more than one ambition and more than one purpose. I just loved him. If you took up 2 pages of these notes, wish I'd read them, you would have had a better story. Okay, juxtapositions. I was working in the back of the plane, and my number 1 called me and said, there's a fellow coming down. He's going to be sitting in 23 Charlie, which is on the aisle on the left when you're looking up toward the captain. And looking up at the captain is not what we always did, but some of them were really great. So, 23, Charlie. You'll know him, because that's where he's sitting, but he's super scared. I don't think we should take him. We were going right across the country. Talk to him, Heather. Just go and talk to him. I said, okay. So I waited till 23 sat down. I walked up to him and I said, excuse me, sir. And I always did this. I knelt down in the aisle. Because when you kneel down in the aisle and you look somebody straight in the eye and you put your hand on their arm, you make a connection. And I didn't do it to fake it. I did it because I love these people. And my flight attendants, people I worked with, taught me a lot. Plus, I'm old and I've got wrinkles, so I was never considered a flirt, which is a bummer. Anyway, so this man, I said, excuse me, sir. My friend up at the front told me that you weren't too comfortable flying. Is there anything I can do? No, I can't get on this plane. I can't get on this plane. But my sister's got, she's really sick. I haven't seen her for 6 years. I've got to go and see her. I just can't do it on a plane. But I've got to go. So I said, come on back. So I took him to the back alley. And I was desperate. And I'm not a religious woman. But I said, would it help you if we prayed? Yeah. I said, and I thought, who the heck does this guy pray to? There's so many. So I said, well, who do you pray to? And he said, Allah. I went, great. So I took him to a corner and I said, this is your true north. This is the direction of Mecca. Let's go. And I prayed to Allah. It was a beautiful experience for me. I had my arm around his waist. And I could feel his body completely melt. It went from rigid and toxic to relaxed, calm, and beautiful. He sat down. We flew across the country. Nice. Very nice. And then there's so many religions that come on our flight. And one of my favorites was when I had this young couple. I forget where we were going. Thank God I wasn't a navigator. I wouldn't have gotten anywhere. In fact, JetBlue gave me a compass so I could find my way around the airport. They were joking, but it's so true. I had a head injury when I was 33. I have very little sense of direction. Really good thing I didn't become a pilot. But I knew my way up and down the aisle of the plane, but when I got into a big airport, it was different. So anyway, I got this compass. It didn't work. I got it stuck on my wall at home as a hobbit door on an art piece. So this lovely, 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 bouncy Orthodox Jewish couple got on my flight. He was short and chubby, and she was short and robust. And they bounced down the flight. I mean, it's a small airplane, 100 passengers, and they took up the whole space with their joy. And they were dressed in black, you know, everything was, and I couldn't get over it, so I went up to them and I said, why are you so happy? We just got married. She just got married. We're going away. They've never been away from home. They just got married. They've never been alone together. They've never been alone together. These 2 kids were having a blast. They were so in love. He came back and he said, isn't she the most beautiful thing you've ever seen? Now that's beauty. have you seen that before? I went, no. And I hadn't. And I can see their faces now. And then she came back to the galley, and she said, Bridget got married. We're going away. We're married, you know. We're married. We're married tonight. And I said, do you have any questions? You know? And she said, I think I know what's going on. I think I know what's going to happen. And there'll be babies. And I went, can you wait till we land? They were great. I just loved it. And I loved every different kind of man and woman and every other kind of person. I mean, it was just great. The people we learned from on that flight, on every flight. Okay, now something a little Vermonty. A little boy got on wearing a John Deere t-shirt. And I was a dairy farmer. I was working on as a herdsman on a dairy farm for my first few years, a year and a half when I worked here. When I first moved here to Vermont, what a great introduction to Vermont. And great. So I saw this John Deere shirt that he tore past me and he went right to where we have the cabinet that has all our free snacks. He opened it up and he starts filling up his t-shirt with chocolate chip cookies. And his mother's like, I'm so embarrassed, I don't know what to do. He just gets like that. And I said, don't worry about it. I said, but nobody could board past him, you see. He was kind of blocking the way. So she hustled him down, and I just told her, don't worry, I'll bring some snacks down as soon as we get calm here. So I went back down after we took off with a basket full of snacks, and I said, I love your shirt, but there was nothing there. Zero. Nothing there. And I got down, I said, and I looked, and he's mentally challenged. Completely. And the mother told me, he doesn't know what you're talking about. I said, he's wearing a John Deere shirt. So I got down and I started telling him, my boss had a John Deere tractor. It was the only one I liked. I could start it. It was smooth. It was no cab. Then he bought an International 1066. It had a cab. It had a fan. I hated it. Made a lot of noise. Sure, it covered ground, but I had no fresh air. And he looked at me and he started to laugh. And his mother couldn't believe it. And I said, we're talking tractors here. It's a language. And so I told her, I said, learn something. I don't care where you live. Pick up a calendar. Pick up any kind of thing you can find with tractors on it. You'll have a conversation with that boy. Because those boys are like that. And I guess some women who've had head injuries are like that too. But another John Deere story, which is terrific, my favorite. This tall 6'6" man gets on the plane, very rugged. And I was working first class at this point. The last 5 years I was with JetBlue, it was only first class. And he gets on, he's walking in, he's wearing a John Deere hat. And I look up at him and I take him by the arms. I'm old, I can do this. You can grab anybody when you've got wrinkles. I swear to God, it's so terrific. I'm not harassing you, I'm senile. Anyway, and I have memories. But anyway, grab him by the biceps. Holy God. Anyway, I say, are you a farmer? And he looks down at me like this and he said, no. Oh, okay. So somebody comes up behind him who's boarding. Don't you know who he is? Flashes her phone. And he played Tarzan in the movie. And he's got no shirt on, and he's got this hair, a hairband. I said, well, if he wasn't wearing a shirt, I wouldn't have noticed his hat. Anyway, and it's true. It's still in my heart. Anyway, I went back and talked to him after, and I said, I'm sorry, I live in Vermont. I know more about John Deere than I do about acting. Which is funny because I was cast in a movie last week. I had 3 lines, and my best friend had 6 words, and we couldn't remember them. We'll be cut on the cutting room floor, but it was fun. Now, let's see, am I taking too much time? Because I'm having a good time, but I don't want to ruin your night.
You're doing great, Heather.
Okay, that's good. Okay, here's a couple of stories that you probably will never hear from anyone else, but this one's called The Ups and Downs of Prostitution. Sure, you laugh, but I was in Burbank, and we didn't have boarding in the building. We had a ramp that came up to the flight. And I see this woman walking across the ramp. She's got shoulders like a football player, and she's got little bull legs, and she's going like this, and she's walking up. And she gets to the ramp, and I'm looking at her going, I wonder if she's going to make it up this ramp. Well, she heaves herself up the ramp, and she gets in front of me, and she said, hi. And I said, you are happy. I have never seen anyone with so much agility and spunk. I said, wonderful. I I said, I'm going to come back and talk to you later. And so I did, and I went back and talked to her. She was sitting between two men. And I said, excuse me. I said, I'd come back and talk to you later. What makes you so happy? She says, I'm a provider. And I went, what do you provide? And she just looked at me. She said, I am a provider. And so then I realized these two men are moving away from her in some kind of terrible, disgust. And I said, you come up to the galley and talk to me. I want to know all about your life. Come on. Up to the galley we go. I've been arrested so many times. I've been beaten up, and now I only have three customers, and they are good to me. And she's in her 60s. Gave me hope. Anyway, I'm only kidding. But I talked to her for the longest time. And she said, I'm going to New York because they're making a movie about me. They want to make a documentary about my life. And I said, it's going to be the best. And I kept in touch with her. Her name is Vanessa. She told me about the hardships of working your way into the terrible business and coming out alive. It was a tough one. But to come out alive and happy took a very special woman. So I was proud of her. Anyway, the next time I was flying out of New York, it was a night flight to the West Coast, and this woman got on, I swear to God, beautiful hair, beautiful white suit, absolutely gorgeous, the right accessories, everything was lovely. I swear she could have been from Montreal, which is where I'm from. But she was just one of those people who stopped traffic. And she was in her probably early 50s. And there were very few people on the flight. So I walked by her once, about 2 hours into the flight, and she was crying. So this is, oh good, somebody's crying. I can do something, hooray. What's happening? We weren't allowed after a certain time at JetBlue. There were no rules at the beginning, but then they got rules. But I was allowed to sit with customers at that point. So I scooted in, and I sat beside her, and I took her hand, and I said, can I get something? What's wrong? And I thought she'd lost somebody. And I wasn't wrong. She said, my life is a waste. I don't know why I'm alive at all. My sister had a child out of wedlock. So I quit college some 30 years ago, and I became a professional woman, lady of the evening. And my sister didn't have to work. I put that daughter in the best schools. She names some schools. You would recognize them if I could remember them. Presidential daughters go there. Anyway, and then she went to Princeton. She graduated. She went to grad school. She got her doctorate. She just got engaged to a beautiful man, and they have a penthouse in the city. And they invited me to the penthouse, and I thought, now she's going to tell me, thanks. Well, the daughter, the niece, took her out onto the penthouse balcony and said, I can't have you in my family anymore. I know what you do for a living. I will never talk to you again. And there was nothing I could do to help that woman. But I don't send any blessings to that niece. I believe in karma. I hope the prostitute gets really good karma. And I hope that niece doesn't. Okay. Sorry. Anyway, the eye of the beholder. I was in Long Beach Airport, and we were delayed. We were watching people. I even had time to play cards with some kids. We're always delayed. I think it's wonderful. Poor Patrick came to me and says, we're going to be a few minutes late tonight. I'm going, I work for an airline. You could be 3 hours late, and I just packed out cookies. I don't care. But I love this, so thanks, Patrick. Anyway, we're there, and I was just watching people, and I turned around, and there was this fellow sitting down in a very relaxed position. He was wearing sweats, and they didn't match, and he hadn't shaved. He had a great big huge toothless smile on his face. He was laughing. And I thought, oh, I wonder what they're laughing at. And the woman who was talking to him was very animated. Her back was to me. And she was doing this and that. Oh, she was doing everything. And she was so animated and she was so majestic and she was very tall. And I thought, I wonder what she's telling that fellow. Anyway, I said, and she's gorgeous. And the other fellow I was flying with said, my God, she's got to be a model or something. And I said, yeah, I wonder if that's her husband. So she turns around, and I still think she's gorgeous. The fact is, she had no face. It had been burned, or acid burned, or I don't know, no bone structure, no nothing. The neck was a patchwork of odd materials. It would have been ugly if it wasn't on her. It wasn't. It was gorgeous because she had an inner light. And on that trip, they sat in this first row, and I was working up front, so that I could see them even when I was in the jump seat, and I could hear them talking and laughing. So she included me. She said, this is my brother. We've got one of those fly for a year, anywhere JetBlue flies tickets. We're going everywhere in the country. We're seeing friends and family and everything. We've never really had a vacation. We're from the south side of Chicago. And I said, oh, I've got 5 children, 4 adopted, 1 of my biological children, but they're all mine. And I went, yeah, they're so lucky to have you. She's damn right, damn straight. They're lucky to have me, and I'm lucky to have them. Nothing was ever mentioned. No self-pity, no nothing but joy. And to this day, I can't remember what that face looked like. I can't, and I tried. I tried to describe it to my friends. I couldn't. I said, it's just beauty. Just beauty. And it was. What can I tell you? People you meet. And judgment calls are so wrong. I like the brother, too. He was a riot. Most people are, if they have a family and friends to visit. Okay. All right. Let's see. I hope I'm not boring you. Here we go. And another one. Wheelchair comes up to the plane. I'm working first. The wheelchair comes up. They put this person on a straight back and carry them forward. I didn't get a good look. I was working, doing something or other. And they put her in a window seat because if you are in any way challenged physically, you sit by the window so you don't block the egress of anybody trying to climb over you if there's an accident. We'll hope they take the person by the window with them. That would be nice. Anyway, we land wherever we are, I can't remember. And as usual, which is quite common, the wheelchairs don't show up. But I didn't even know she was still there because I couldn't see her because she was not statuesque. She was small. So I'm walking back, go to get my bag out of the overhead, and there she is. And I said, oh my God, you're still here. And she said, well, nobody came to get me. And I went, oh, okay, you need a straight back, I think. Yeah. But I'm looking at her, and there are no legs. There's a little tiny person, long hair, freckles, green eyes, and beautifully manicured hands. And I said, I'll carry you. How much do you weigh? She's 27 pounds. Thalidomide. And I went, oh, I can do that. I can pump 27 pounds. Yes, let's do this. So I reach under and I pick her up. And I observe emerald green eyes, beautiful auburn hair, beautifully manicured fingernails, and little tiny toes that are pedicured in open-toed sandals. And I looked down at this lovely person and I said, why are you here? What are you doing in this town? She said, I just got my PhD and I have to give a talk. You'd think they'd be here with a wheelchair, but I'm having a good time. I said, I'm having a good time. I'll carry you to wherever you're going. I said, and then she told me about her dissertation and she told me about what her plans are. And these are people you meet who you don't know exist, but they give you hope. They give you hope. I had a head injury when I was 33, it's a bad one, and it's nothing compared to what I meet every single day on an airplane. It's nothing. And they give me hope. And when I meet other people who've just had 2 years or 1 year, I met somebody this weekend who had a 9-month accidents, I was talking to her, and she'll come over to my clinic. And the brain is amazing at a regeneration. It comes back different. You lose some things, you gain some things. You gain a lot. If you're lucky, you gain Vermont. If you're lucky, you get to talk to people like this 20, 30, 40 years later. I can't remember. I can't do math. But that was before my accident, too. I got 27 in algebra. I went to attendant school. Anyway, that Jennifer was her name, and I'll never forget that brilliant young lady and everything she told me. Military. How many people here were in the military? You, Brian, my cameraman. Yay, Brian. Air Force. And my father was in the Royal Canadian Navy. My grandfather was in the British Army. One of my husbands who went to Vietnam. Who's counting? That wasn't our problem. You know, I've been married twice, and no hard feelings. I was very lucky to get two. At all. Anyway, I was a lucky girl. Anyway, military. These two, a young couple, they were probably in their 40s, 50s, got onto my plane. And it was an E-190, which is 2 seats on each side, 100 passengers. And they looked totally blank, pale blank, and something was wrong. So I thought, I'll talk to them during the flight. So I went down after we finished service, and I stopped, and I knelt down, and I said, what can I get you? And the woman looked and said, I have something in the overhead bin that I'd like you to get. I said, okay, what is it? And she says, the flag. It's in a triangle. I went, okay. We were flying out of Washington, so I guess it was Arlington National Cemetery. I said, okay. And I got up, and I had to stand on a step to get up there. It's in the seat, so you can stand up and really reach in. And I thought it would be this light thing, this flag, full of air, full of linen, or whatever, nylon, whatever. I could hardly lift it. I could hardly lift it. Not ashes. It was the soul of their daughter, Catherine. I fully felt that. And as I took it down, and it was hard to take down and give to the mom, I said, what was your child's name? And she said, Catherine. And I said, I'll remember her every day. And I do, every day. We're lucky if our children are alive, if they come back. And then there was another one. I'm not dragging you down, am I? These are happy stories because these people still are alive and they're functioning and they're part of what we are here. Okay. Then there was a little boy on my flight. He just wasn't looking himself, so I said, is there anything I can do? What can I get you? And he said, I just came back from Afghanistan. And I said, how was it? And he said, not good. Not good. I said, are you injured? He said, no. And then he grabbed me. And he started sobbing on my shoulder. And he saturated my shoulder. He couldn't let me go. And I was strong. Like a little boy, but strong. And he said, please tell me I'll get better. Please, 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 please tell me I'll get better. And my crew was worried about me because I was being embraced rather strongly for quite a long time. And I just went, I'm okay. No, I'm okay. And I think of him every day too. And then on another flight, a fellow gets on. He's boarding, I'm at the front. And he's blind. He said, not completely. Mostly. I stepped on a landmine. It doesn't happen every day. And I went, no. And I reached out to take his hand, because he was like this. I took his hand and there were no fingers. And I didn't react. And I said, well, if there's anything I can get you on the flight, sir, let me know. He said, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. I'm going home. And so I said, I'll come down and talk to you. So I said, you're going home. What makes you so happy about being home? What makes you happy at home? He said, my wife's there. And we run a business. I said, what kind of business is it? I'm a photographer. Oh, that's nice. I didn't react. And he said, she's terrific. it's going to be great. We're a team. But he said, I have some advice for you. I said, what's that? He said, don't step on a landmine. I said, you got it. I will try not to. Thank you. Supernatural. Okay, woman gets on my flight. And when she gets on, then I don't know how many here consider themselves intuitive. There must be, all of you, somewhat intuitive. You live in Vermont. You sense things. You feel things. I think that comes from living here or being raised like I was, mostly on a vegetable farm with my grandparents. You feel things. So, this woman gets on the flight, and immediately, whack, I got a hit of something really strong. Whoa, but it was fast boarding, fast. 159 people, boom, boom, boom. So I thought, well, and I forgot. And I'm walking down the back galley, and I get it again. And there are 3 on this side and 3 on that side. And I stopped, and I went, whoa, somebody's really sad here. And then I blurted out a name. Alan. And this woman thought she was on candid camera, and she lit into me. How dare JetBlue tell you about it? How dare did anybody from reservation call you? I can't believe you're doing this to me. How dare you mention his name? How dare you? And I went, who? And she said, my brother Alan died this morning. We're still in touch. So she called JetBlue, raised Cain, and it finally came to my supervisor, and my supervisor defended me by saying, that's just Heather. And that's just me. But it helps to be like that. It really, really helps if you don't blurt. We're still friends for a lot of reasons. Her brother died that morning. His name was Alan, spelled A-L-A-N. My brother died at 33. His name was A-L-A-N. 9 months later, I haven't seen her. I haven't heard from her. She gets back on my flight 9 months later. I look at her and I said, oh, you've changed your hair. It's gorgeous. She said, I'm so sorry. I talked to everybody at JetBlue. You're just Heather. I said, yes, and who are you? And she says, I'm just Susan. I said, oh, Alan's sister. Yes. I said, yeah, I know. She said, my dad died this morning. I thought I'd tell you before you told me. I went, okay, great. We're still in touch. She's fabulous. She and her husband, well, mostly her, runs a kosher bakery. She's working at Princeton or Yale, one of those two, and then she started a kosher bakery. And she sends me pictures of these things. I'm allergic to chocolate, but it would be worth it to die eating one of her things. Honest to me. Anyway, yeah, we're still in touch, and that's a nice story. More intuition. I was in New Orleans right after Katrina, and it's my favorite American city. I love it. Maybe because I'm from French Canada. I go down there and I kind of feel that vibe. I never went out at night there. I'm probably the only American who's never gone out at night there. But I'm lazy. So anyway, I used to run, and I'd go up running every morning for a few hours. And before I left the hotel, the Whitney, I said, I really want to know how these people are feeling. I just threw it out there. So I started running. Run. Music on every corner. I love. I love it. And then I get to Canal Street, and I see a group of men standing there, maybe 100 feet from me. And one of them in the center was not black. He was gray. We locked eyes, and I ran to him. And he caught me in his arms, and he kissed me on the neck and let me go. And I had that pain for 6 months. It was like porcupine quills. Porcupine quills. I had asked, I think he was a spirit. I call it Canal Street Encounter. I've spoken to people from New Orleans about this. They believe it too, because New Orleans has always had that option for me to see what I want to see, to be where I want to be, to feel what I want to feel. I love it there for that magical feeling that exists if you're open to it. I believe that was the spirit, and I believe you have to be careful what you ask for in this world. I asked to know their pain. I carried that almost impossible pain. You couldn't touch my neck for 6 months. He was totally gentle. It was, this is what you asked for, and now you've got it. And that to me, I mean, I've written professionally since I was 19. I had a newspaper for 30 years. That's my favorite story. My favorite story, because I've got to be careful. I've been careful since then. I'm not going to ask any of you how you feel. It's not like I don't care. But it hurts if you get the wrong answer. And this is a family story. It's a true story. I was at a party up in Ottawa, party for my dad. And my brother-in-law was there, and his name is Kim Norris. Very successful young man, very successful in everything he touched. But he had a little edge to him that kind of hurt me from the time I was 17 or 19 on. That was some kind of comment that I'm sensitive, it would hurt. And then he came up to me at that party, and he vamped a flight attendant, cliche, vamped, and he said, if I'm ever on your flight, and very affected, you better give me a cup of coffee. And I said to him, Kim, if ever you're on my flight, you better hope, if anything goes wrong, that I save your life. Exactly 2 weeks later, I sat up straight in bed in the middle of the night, and I said, Kim. And I went, well, what was that? Went back to sleep. And at 9 o'clock the next morning, I got a call from Ottawa. And it was my sister Maureen, and she's, Heather, are you sitting down? Oh God, this doesn't sound good. And I said, no, is it Kim? And she said, oh, Pam called you? I said, no. You died in a plane crash last night. Dana Air, June 3rd, 2012. Dana Air, 159. Go on. Pilot error, mechanical error, no FAA. No oversight over there. Be careful what you fly when you're in Africa. So that's Kim's story. And I believe he came to me in those seconds that he was alive, because it didn't happen instantly. I believe he came to me when he knew it was the end. And I think he was asking for my help. And I wasn't there for him. And nobody else could be. But you be careful what you ask for. You be careful who you make fun of. Because there's karma. So that's Kim's story. Oh, and Pam's doing great. She joined a kickboxing class. Sold a big house, moved into a really cute apartment. She's having a blast, and the children are doing fine too. They were in their 20s when he passed away. So it's not happily ever after, but everybody's doing great in our family. And now, I guess I'm boring you to death, but I'll just give you a couple more stories because I'm having a really good time. And the famous people you meet on board. I flew first class to LA for the last 5 years. LA, San Francisco. And it was Mother's Day. And I was in San Francisco and I was flying back to New York. And I looked at my manifest, because they give you an iPad, you can check out who's on your flight. You can Google their names to see how nice you have to be. Or what they do for a living, so that you can say, oh yes, I too am a fundraiser. Or no, they don't. You like to know their background a little bit. Gives you something to talk about. When my mother died in September 26, 1970, and the song at the cottage that summer, I had a record player and I had a Bridge Over Troubled Waters and Simon and Garfunkel record. And my mom had been an invalid since I was 5. So she'd have me play Bridge Over Troubled Waters over and over and over again, and she'd say, I love that so much. It speaks. It's the words, Heather. And so, just about the last week we were at the lake, she said, I want that played at my funeral. And I said, oh, Mom. She died about 10 times since I was 5, and I said, oh, you're not going to die. She's 55 pounds and blind, but no, she's not going to die. She's got that eternal skeletal look. But she was a great lady, but it turned out that she did pass away. Now, I was raised by my father, who was very strong, and I was a Victorian society, and Pam Ladd, are you here? Yes? Victorian society, doesn't it drive you crazy? You have to behave in a proper way, especially as a lady. So when Dad, who used to raise hearses with the funeral director in Montreal, he used to get in trouble raising the family hearses, they're in there talking about my mom's funeral, and I'm with them, and I said nothing. And then at the end, I turned to Mr. McGilvery and I said, "Excuse me, Mr. McGilvery," I was 17. "Would you mind playing Bridge Over Troubled Waters at my mother's funeral?" And he was just about to look at my dad. He almost looked at my dad for approval. And he said, "Sure, Heather, we can do that." And they did. And so every Mother's Day, and on my mother's birthday, that's what I play. So it's Mother's Day in San Francisco, and I looked at my manifest, and the name on my manifest is Art Garfunkel. So I sit down and immediately get all that, that hotel paper that is this big. And it wasn't enough, so I went down to the front desk. I said, "Do you have any legal paper?" Legal pad, I've got a letter to write. So they gave me the yellow paper. And I went upstairs and I wrote him a long, long letter telling him about how those words bring my mother to me. Every time I hear them, it's, "I will lay me down. When you're weary, I will be there." It's just one of these things. Don't worry, I'm there. So I wrote all this, and I got a big smile on my face, the tears running down my face. And so he boards, and I say, "Hi, Mr. Garfunkel." He says, "Don't say my name, don't say my name." I went, "Hi, sir." Okay, got that. So he comes up to the lab, and just before he goes in, I say, "Excuse me, sir. This is for you. Don't read it now, but someday you might read it. And it's from my heart, and I really am so very grateful to you. You don't know." He goes in there, and he's there forever. It's like, what's he doing, lines? A lot of people go there to that. He finally came out. And this is a very Jewish thing. I was married to a wonderful Jewish man. I still love him. It's like this. So I knew you read it. And I just stood there, and he came over, and he got his elbows down on the galley counter like this, and he said, "You never know when you put those words out there if anybody gets it. If anybody hears your words." And I put my elbows right beside him, and we had a good talk. He gave me my mother. He may not have written those words, but when he says them, they're my mother. And that's what a customer can give you. A customer can give you everything. You can walk onto a plane and know that there are any number of people there who need you. And you need them as a flight attendant. If ever you're on a flight and you look up and you see somebody who looks really tired, we are. If you ever say, "Please help me with my bag," we will if we can. We're there for you. We're there if you need us. We're there if you get sick. We're there if you get a heart attack. We're there if you have a panic attack. And I've been there for these people, and I feel I'm needed. And then suddenly I'm not a flight attendant anymore. I feel like running people over with my car, just like they can help you. And don't bet on it. I'm not a great driver. But wasn't a great pilot. But I do love living here with all of you. I'm really so glad I got to speak with you tonight. It brought me home to being on a plane with my brothers and sisters in blue. And maybe you now know that all of you are the people we love up there. No matter what you do for a living, no matter what you look like, no matter how you act, there's something good in everyone, except Jeremy's mother. But people are good, and America is a good country because of you. Thank you.